What is up guys, Taiki here, and in this video I'd like to give an update on UST and how it's going to be partially backed by Bitcoin and Luna and the implications that it's going to have for the crypto industry. And I think the biggest takeaway is that I think Luna potentially has the chance to be one of the few altcoins that Bitcoiners will start to support. So let's get right into it. So if you've been living under a rock, essentially Luna UST, to mint $1 worth of UST. To mint 1 UST, you have to burn $1 worth of Luna. So as the market cap of UST keeps going up, this means that more Luna is being burned, right? And that's one of the reasons why Luna has been outperforming because it's been deflationary, right? It's like roughly a million Luna is like burned per day, which is pretty insane. But there's also this entire argument around UST, is it a Ponzi, right? Like Luna is a Ponzi, is it going to zero? And I guess one of the counter arguments against that, I guess from Do-Kwon and Terraform Labs, their perspective is that, okay, we're just going to back UST partially with Bitcoin, right? And it's going to help with the stability mechanism. And, they're sitting with $3 billion worth of Bitcoin that they haven't, or I don't think they've purchased Bitcoin yet, but, the market knows that they're sitting on $3 billion that they're going to buy Bitcoin with, and I think the market is trying to front run, I guess, the buys, and it's kind of characterized by the screenshot where people are speculating that, hey, did they already buy it? And even if they already bought, they're going to keep buying, right? And Luna is going to continue to buy. Or Terraform Labs and the Luna Foundation Guard, they're going to continue to buy Bitcoin. So there's this invisible hand that's present in the market that I think is going to help propel Bitcoin to higher prices because it's a really strong narrative, right? It's a really strong narrative. But the narrative I want to push isn't this $3 billion buy, right? Because once this $3 billion buy happens, then what now, right? That narrative is going to go away. But I think the stronger narrative and the more important narrative isn't the $3 billion, but the implications of this $3 billion buy. Because Udi, right? Udi, one of my favorite Bitcoiners in the space, hosted a Twitter Spaces event with Do-Kwon, essentially asking questions and having answers on how this entire mechanism is going to work. And if you actually look, I suggest everyone listen to this, right? If you're interested in this, I'll provide a link to this in the description below. But there was a lot of Bitcoiners, right? Bitcoin Maxis that were listening in because they definitely thought it was interesting. Even Jack Dorsey, right? Jack Dorsey, Bitcoin Maxi, he was also listening in. And even Pomp, right? I'm sure he listened to this, and he even released his 8-minute video on what Do-Kwon is trying to do. So let's kind of go over the implications of this entire event, and also addressing, I guess, the whole is UST a Ponzi narrative, because I don't think it's a invalid argument, right? Anyone that dismisses it, is just too high on on the Kool-Aid, not financial advice, of course. And I think one of the takeaways from this event, and UST being partially backed by Bitcoin, is essentially Terraform Labs and Do-Kwon acknowledging that a full Luna backing for UST is unsustainable, right? Because if in a 90-day world, if UST can get to $1 trillion of market cap with 100% Luna backing, they would have done so, right? But the fact that they're pivoting to a partially backed model means that, okay, Do-Kwon probably looked at his odds and probably figured out, or probably did some scenario playing, and probably decided that the Bitcoin backing route is his best shot at success, right? So maybe you can interpret this to be bullish or bearish depending on which aisle you're in, because Luna, either you love Luna or you hate Luna, right? You think it's a Ponzi. It's pretty bipolar in the way people think about it, which I think is kind of interesting too. But this is a fact, right? Use connected dots, right? Just use logic. This is what's happening. So, obviously the bearish case is that, okay, it's not sustainable. So how high can it actually grow, right? And it's bearish too because the amount of Luna that's going to be burned is going to go down, right? If there's going to be a partial Bitcoin backing. So let's assume that it's going to be an 80% Luna, 20% Bitcoin backed stablecoin, right? And the exact mechanics and the ratios aren't clear yet because they haven't published anything. But for the sake of the argument, let's start with this argument. And maybe as UST grows in market cap, this ratio just dilutes more, right? Maybe as it gets bigger, it's gonna be like 50% Luna, 50% Bitcoin. If it's like half $1 trillion, it's gonna be like 90% backed by Bitcoin or something. I don't know, right? But obviously the bear case is that less Luna is gonna be burned. But if we work under the assumption that a full Luna backed stablecoin like UST may not have been sustainable, and maybe at the current model, right, 100% backed by Luna, maybe there's like a limit to how much UST can grow, right? Because maybe at like $40 billion market cap, it becomes dangerous, right? And there's really some FUD and volatility that's going to come. But if it's partially backed by Bitcoin, then maybe the total addressable market of USD grows larger, because there's more faith in the peg, right? So let's say, using that example, $40 billion, right, is the cap for USD, right, if it's fully backed by Luna. But if it's, let's say, 50% backed by Bitcoin, maybe USD can grow up to like 200 billion, right? And even though the burn rate for Luna is lower, in that scenario, it's still going to burn more Luna, right, in terms of quantity, because the USD market cap is growing at a larger pace, and I guess its limit is much higher, if that makes sense. So I do think this makes sense. And for me, like as a lunatic, like I don't really care if like the burn rate for Luna goes down. I just care that UST is growing, right? I mean, because the entire community, we're not really centered around like Luna the asset. We're centered around UST the asset, right? We're trying to grow this stablecoin, a decentralized stablecoin, because a decentralized future requires a decentralized stablecoin, right? And I think we're all rallying around this, and I do think it makes sense. And tying this to Bitcoin, I feel like as USD grows, as Bitcoin, as the Bitcoin backing for USD grows over time, I think there's a chance that UST becomes like a better version of the Lightning Network, right? Because Lightning Network is supposed to be like this L2 for Bitcoin. People are gonna use Lightning Network to transact, but it's a meme, right? Like who the hell uses Lightning Network, right? I mean I'm full time in crypto. I know a bunch of people in crypto. I don't really know a single person that uses like Lightning Network on a daily basis, right? But I think it's more likely that UST as like a medium of exchange that's backed by Bitcoin. I think it's more likely that people use UST as a medium of exchange rather than Bitcoin, right? And Hal Finney, who was a core contributor to Bitcoin, he unfortunately passed away. But back even in 2010, he mentioned that he believes the ultimate fate of Bitcoin is to be the high-powered money that serves as a reserve currency for banks that issue their own digital cash, right? Even he, right, the OG Bitcoiner, says that, okay, people are unlikely to use Bitcoin. It's most likely going to be used as a reserve currency. And maybe, a few decades from now, like real banks, right? Maybe like real central banks will start accumulating. But, in terms of like crypto adoption, Bitcoin adoption, maybe UST is going to be like, what we will look back at like 20 years from now and be like, okay, this was how Bitcoin reached mainstream adoption, right? Maybe that's going to be the narrative. And, like I mentioned, I think the biggest narrative for this event, this $3 billion buy, isn't just the $3 billion, but the implications, right? And the implication is that, Bitcoiners are going to start to open up to Luna, right? We saw Udi, right? Udi, the Bitcoiner supported, maybe not support, right? But like is open-minded to it. Anthony Pompliano is supporting it, right? And let's skip that slide. And, even Dan Held, right? He's like a Bitcoin maxi, right? But he's open to protocols building on top of Bitcoin, right? And he's excited to see what Stablecoin and the Terra community will do, right? Obviously, and even Plan B, right? Stock to flow, Bitcoin maxi. He says UST is one of the big Bitcoin buyers at the moment. Still studying it, but a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin should theoretically be possible with the right amount of over-collateralization and rebalancing to get rid of Bitcoin volatility. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, it intuitively makes sense. So I don't really understand why Bitcoiners, some Bitcoin maxis are against this. Because if you're gonna put Michael Saylor on a pedestal and idolize him for leveraging his own company to buy $5 billion worth of Bitcoin, then why are you hating on Do Kwon trying to make Bitcoin more accessible, right? Because Michael Saylor, he's just buying Bitcoin for his company, right? To make his shareholders more money or whatever, right? But I think UST and Bitcoin and like Luna, it's actually trying to, do what Lightning Network couldn't do. And I'm not necessarily bearish on the Lightning Network, but I think in 2022 at the current date, I don't really think Lightning Network has that has strong of a future right now, right? There's like no adoption, and even UDI, right? Bitcoin Maxis are against this because Bitcoin Magazine's like a publisher for Bitcoin, ran by Maxis, and they're reporting on a tweet, and they're reporting on a bank making a single Bitcoin trade, but they won't tweet about they're buying $3 billion worth of Bitcoin, LMAO, right? And Bitcoiners can tell you the last time MicroStrategy bought 100 Bitcoin, but they don't have the faintest clue who raised $1 billion to buy Bitcoin with the last month because they don't read shitcoin news, right? So I think right now, Bitcoin Maxis, they're still kind of against it, but over time they're going to open up to it. And if you think about the wealth in crypto, right? Who has the most amount of purchasing power, right? Who is the most rich in crypto? It's the Bitcoiners, right? Because Bitcoin is the number one in terms of market cap, right? So obviously Bitcoin has created the most wealth, other than any other crypto, like mathematically it has. So it's likely that, if more Bitcoiners open up to it, maybe some of the bid, maybe some people will sell Bitcoin to buy Luna. I don't know, right? I'm kind of just speculating on the future of UST and whatnot. But I definitely think it's interesting, right? And one of the reasons why I've been so bullish Luna for almost a year now is because it's one of the few cryptocurrencies that actually has a road to mainstream adoption, whereas other cryptocurrencies, it's more used as a vehicle for speculation, which I'm totally okay with, right? I speculate all the time, but if you want crypto to gain more adoption, there has to be some easy to use application, like UST, with the Alice mobile app and whatnot. And I do think that Luna has a bright future going forward. It's still risky, right? It's still risky. There is a chance that UST goes to zero, but I think over time, right, as UST keeps growing in market cap, as the peg gets defended throughout various FUD events, I think the faith for UST grows stronger over time. And as the faith of UST grows stronger over time, I think the market cap of UST will expand over time. And as the market cap of UST expands over time, more Luna is going to be burned. And, Luna, I've been saying this for the longest time, one of the best tokenomics in all of crypto. And it's demonstrated that by entering the top 5, right? I don't consider USDC and Tether to be in the top 5, right? Because they're not investable currencies. But, top 5, right? It's pretty wild. So let me know what your thoughts are with UST, Luna. Is it it's, I guess the Ponzi narrative will never go away because, that kind of narrative will always get engagement, right? And it is what it is. But I think it's really cool. So thank you guys for watching. And I know I've made, I've been reducing the amount of videos that I've been posting recently, but I've kind of been burnt out. But I took some breaks. I feel a lot better now. So look forward to more videos for me in the future. And I guess you can say that, like during the bear market, I'm saving up my energy so I can make more videos in like the bullish phases of the market. So thank you guys for watching and have fun farming out there.